Hey, what's up guys, Cliff here once again and welcome back to Overwatch. As some of you might know, I've been feeling a little burned out recently, and as a result I've been cutting back on the discussion topics on the channel. Reason being that whenever I played the game in order to get inspired to talk about something in a video, all I could think about were complaints. Now, a German complaining, and that German being me, is nothing short of absolutely normal. I complain about all sorts of things, whether that be for the sake of wanting it improved or just for the sake of talking about it, but I've come to realize that just bitching in every single video is not gonna help me enjoy the game more, and it's only gonna paint a picture of me hating the game when that is simply not true. Today I want to talk about the concept of role restriction, the idea that players are only allowed to play a certain hero or role, and how this in part contributes to said players getting bored of the game. While this is not a news-breaking kind of story, I thought putting this on a table might be a good idea to open up discussion in the community. Now without further ado, let's get right into it. Restricting players to only playing certain heroes or roles definitely is not something that has been common practice for malicious reasons. It is actually quite practical and simultaneously not that great. When playing Overwatch in solo queue, as most people do, you're not gonna know what the other 5 people on your team are going to be good at. The only indication you have are their hours played. Naturally, the more you play a hero, the better you should theoretically get at playing them. So it comes to nobody's surprise that players would preferably have their team play heroes that they know how to play. And that, at times, is the start of a death spiral. A lot of players have quite a large track record by now. I'm talking multiple seasons and hundreds of hours worth of competitive gameplay experience. We are entering a situation where a player is constantly asked to only play their most played heroes, adding more hours onto them, further validating that they should only be playing these heroes, and ultimately hindering progression and improvement for that player. But it's not like it's only based on outside influences. The player in question is gonna start questioning their performance on other heroes as well, or well, it can happen, I guess. Back in season 1, I would have considered myself a flex player. I just tried to play whatever I thought could win us the game, so whether that be DPS, tank or healer, I'd be onto it. And in season 2 already, I felt like that was hindering my progression. You know, the whole jack of all trades but master of none argument? Something I have brought up multiple times in videos myself. It wasn't until I decided to be a support main that I got out of Platinum on the back of Zenyatta and Ana back in season 2. And from there, I felt like my progression had been taking a good course. I steadily improved in my role over the seasons, going from Diamond to Master, and eventually even hit GM on the back of the role that I felt most comfortable in. I felt like I was doing the right thing. More often than not, the matchmaker would pair me up with other individuals that made roles contrary to my own. There were only very few situations where we'd have 3 support mates on our team, for example. It made me feel like the game honored my decision to specialize on a single role by giving me other players who did the same thing. So I definitely can see the value in restricting yourself to only playing a few heroes. After all, practice makes perfect, right? And if you ask me what I think where I would be right now if I still played flex, I'd probably say either Platinum or Diamond. However, we also ended up in a situation where players got kinda tired of playing the same thing over and over again, me included. And what do players like me do in that case? Well, a lot of us got ourselves an ult account where we play other heroes. It's something that other players would consider trolling or throwing. It's like being purposefully less useful to your team than you could. Truth is, however, that if you create a new account and only play heroes on there that you usually don't touch, then you will simply be assigned an MMR value that matches your performance. Back when I was in Master, my DPS performance was rated in Diamond on my ult account, and that absolutely makes sense. There was no way I could perform on the same level as I do on my main roles playing heroes I don't usually touch, so that kind of validates that just suddenly playing other roles is a disservice to your team, right? Well, yes and no. For one, not everyone can afford an ult account, and even if they can, not everyone wants to spend money on an alternate account when there really is no reason for it other than wanting to avoid harassment from their teammates. We are entering this death spiral where players keep locking themselves into the same roles over and over because their goal is, more often than not, a higher rank rather than mere improvement. But even if improvement is their goal, doing that one role at a time is way easier than playing them all. This is a topic I am very split on personally. I mean, on the one side I can see the value of specializing yourself. You improve faster, you're a greater asset to most of your teams, and you get a higher rank quicker. But now enter current season 5. One-tricking is at its peak. We often end up in games where every single player on your your team is really just good at playing a couple of heroes at best, that's not only bad for the sake of counterpicking, but also if we're just talking about mere perspective. Because if you ask me, you need the perspective of every single hero to be able to effectively play with and against them. This is something that players are painfully lacking even in the top 1%. I mean, we just talked about it, right? Specializing or even one-tricking gets to a higher rank so much easier than playing flex, meaning that most players will probably favor that over learning a variety of heroes, and this ultimately narrows their judgment. Don't get me wrong, I know there are one-tricks out there who genuinely are very skilled at the game, but it has been my experience recently that players not knowing enough of other heroes' kits and playstyles results in a lot of toxicity simply based on the lack of information. I mean, we got the stereotype of the bitching support player that keeps whining about their DPS not killing anything, but because they never play DPS, they don't know the struggles they go through in order to perform. And on the flip side, we have the bitching DPS main that whines for heals while overextending. If both of these players were aware of what kind of positioning is necessary to be effective at their given role, it is my belief that they could work more effectively as a unit, and they could also more effectively dismantle the enemy composition through an exploit of misplace. And for me personally, having that ult account is more than worth it. I don't only get to play heroes that I'm not that good at in an elo that's more suitable for it than my main, but learning other heroes on that account helped me every so often to make crucial swaps and win based on that experience on my main account. I'm more aware of what it takes to play tanks and DPS well, so even if I don't end up playing them myself, I have a better idea of what my teammates are going to try and do at any given time. I mean, as much as I get angry over Mercy one-tricks myself, a lot of players don't know the struggles of playing Mercy. DPS-only players will bitch about a Mercy dying early into an engagement when they actively avoided helping that player to survive. I'm talking legitimately walking away and breaking line of sight so there's no way for their Mercy to survive. While it is my belief that it is not difficult to play Mercy on ladder, you can't just bitch about the lack of reses when you go out of your way to not help them survive. And if you played Mercy for just a while, you'd know how annoying it is to play with DPS that rather spam shield damage than helping you fend off flankers. And it is that lack of perspective for other heroes' problems, but also strong points, in my opinion, that causes a lot of unnecessary and baseless finger pointing and toxicity. Ultimately, I think it's good that players decide to specialize on something to be of maximum effectiveness, but simultaneously these players should find a way to clock in a good amount of playtime on other heroes as well, just to learn what makes them strong, how to counter them, and how to properly support them if they are on your team. I know the fear of dropping elo is a good reason for a lot of players to never swap off of their mains, but trust me, in the long run it is going to make you a better player. We often end up in situations where we think we know everything when we only learn it all coming from a single perspective. So here's not me saying that you should become a flex player, neither am I saying that you need to be able to play every single hero. Just play them enough to learn what makes them strong, what their weak points are, and how to properly support them if they're on your team. That knowledge is going to be very useful for you when it comes to figuring out how to win more matches in the future. But this is me done for the day as I talk about role restriction in Overwatch, the benefits and the downsides of doing so. Thank you everybody so much for watching, don't forget to drop me a like on your way up if you enjoyed the video, subscribe if you want to see more, and hope to see you all next time.